It came. It is here. Let's talk about it, Adam. This was something that was a major topic of the podcast over the last 2 years when we were talking about, hey, could there be a disruptor? Is there somebody out there that could challenge the big guys? Who is the brand that might come with enough gravitas that could actually do this? And every time we would mention Fanatics, but that's still to be seen, right? I mean, we'll see how that all goes. But every time we would always end up back at ESPN. Well, ESPN goes and does the deal with Penn. ESPN is putting their weight behind this, as looks like, because we're getting some of the big names to endorse this. ESPN Bet does launch this week.
Launched on Tuesday, and Matt, I think the most notable part was that ESPN leaned all the way in and leaned all the way in immediately. They had ads for it on the app. They had ads for it on television. They had their personalities like Scott Van Pelt pushing it. They immediately had odds from ESPN Bet prominently featured within SportsCenter with Scott Van Pelt talking about them. They had another ad with Elle Duncan on the air just over the last couple of days. They're absolutely leaning in. And what we've seen is that, at least in terms of downloads, and I'm going to stop right here for everybody who's getting ready to throw something at their phone when they hear me talking about downloads. I know that downloads don't equal profit. I know they don't equal anything. But 2 days in, we don't have a lot of other ways to measure what's going on here. Now, back to the point. They are number one in terms of free apps in the App Store for downloads. That's partially affected by Barstool customers being, asked to download the ESPN Bet app to continue. So, in the end, what we see here is an app that, by the first few screenshots that I've seen, not particularly different than what was being put out there under the Barstool app. I don't know that it was maybe the single most visually appealing app that I've seen thus far. Functionality wise, we got to give it some time to play out and see if people are actually willing to stick with those downloads, right? Because it looked like a $200 promo for just about anybody out there who was able to download ESPN Bet and be active with it in a legal state where Barstool had been. But that push that we talked about, Matt, the push that you had referenced for such a long time of using the ability they have to reach more people than anyone else, that part, there's no question about. They did all of it, and they're going to continue to do all of it with one of the most anticipated Monday Night Football games of the year coming up this week.
Yeah, they leaned into it. We targeted. We said it was no coincidence that this was going to be the launch date with the Eagles and the Chiefs coming up. Another thing that they did, Daily Wager is no longer. Daily Wager is now ESPN Bet Live. So that is now a rebrand of that show that they are going to be pushing the branding awareness as well. So just tons of stuff that's going on over there with all of it. And as you mentioned, the biggest question that I had heading into this was, is this just going to be slap a sticker on something and then it's just like, oh, it'll work on its own? Or were they going to get the people behind it? I mean, look, they rebranded a whole show that's on television 5 days a week. They have Scott Van Pelt. They have whatever. Like we said, I cannot wait to see what happens this Monday and how it's going to be featured in the Monday night broadcast. That's going to be something that's fairly interesting. Do they bring it into, which would be weird because of the other endorsements, how do they work it into like the Manning cast and things, because of Manning family, obviously on the Caesar side of things. So pretty interested to see how that plays out as well. I did download the app. I have been messing around with it. Of course, I can't use it here in Nevada, but I have been messing around with it. Good options. It seems to function well. I like, this is stuff that you and I, having been living in Nevada for as long as we did and stuff, is the, just everything being prominently featured and very easy to navigate and stuff like that, which is stuff you just don't get in Nevada when it comes to the apps. And so, very much out in front of you of here's what's topical, here's what's going on, here's the next thing that's going to happen, all those things, like you said, digging into the weeds. I haven't been able to deposit. I haven't been able to actually bet on it. So I can't really give it a critique from that standpoint. Next time I head to Colorado or Arizona or whatever, I'll give it a whirl. But yeah, I mean, off the cuff, mess around with it without just being able to play around. Seems like it's fine. And as you mentioned, the ESPN branding behind it and the ESPN push probably is going to get it a ton of downloads, probably is going to get a lot of people exposed. Can they hold on to those people will be the big question.
Of course. And what we've started to see now in the market is that the companies that do have better products, it's starting to win out, right? We heard for so long it's going to all be about products. It's going to be all about products. Well, it actually is starting to play that way now, right? We knew that DraftKings had a good product. We knew that FanDuel had a product that it had been working on for a very long time. It's also very good. And the two market leaders have been able to leverage that into not only keeping the people they brought in the first place, but getting some people who take offers from other places, take promos to come back home to them and spend. And I thought it was really interesting in DraftKings Investor Day that they did earlier this week, where they talked about the progressive parlays and the other things that they're going to be doing now. They also discussed the fact that they've been learning, right? That they really have been trying to refine based on what they've been bringing in and making the app better. And I know that sounds simple. It sounds like, well, wouldn't any business try to take more data on what the customer wants and turn it into a better product? Not necessarily when it comes to sports betting apps. Some places have just thrown the technology out and said, okay, now we have an app and hopefully that'll monetize for us. Like, they have really reinvested, DraftKings, FanDuel, and a number of others as well. But just to name those two in specific, because they're the market leaders right now, they really have tried to be responsive to what people want and need out of the app. And that's going to be the real challenge for Penn Entertainment, for the Score, using the technology that Penn bought in that $2 billion purchase of the Score, and now is trying to leverage in a nearly $2 billion deal with ESPN.
Yeah, you look here, obviously, I opened the app just now. The first thing you see is an odds boost for Monday Night Football. Of course, the headlining game here, Monday Night Football. They're not worried about pushing the NBA stuff and all of that. Like, it's they're going about it smart, right? And so, because we've seen some of the European apps like that are getting functionality from over there, and they've gotten much better about it and all that. Like, it used to be, there'd be Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football, I should say, tonight. There'd be Thursday Night Football, and the leading thing would be like some random 8th game of the year NBA thing. Or so you're like, oh, what are you doing? Lean into Thursday Night Football. What are you doing? Like, let's definitely get that going. Adam, one of the other things we just, credit to Penn where credit is due. They learned, I think, somewhere along the way as well. They thought with the Barstool stuff that it was just kind of like, okay, we're going to turn the lights on and everyone will come and everyone is going to get, everyone's going to just download this. It's going to be fine. Well, we did see not only the push from ESPN, but partnerships made with Penn with other companies and things like that to help publish and get the app and things out there. I think learning from the whole deal with Barstool that, yes, a brand can be super recognizable. A brand can certainly carry some weight, but at the end of the day, you still got to get it in front of people. You still got to figure out how to get it in front of people. And they didn't do that with ESPN, what they did with Barstool.
Yeah, I think it's important to note the fact that ESPN as a media organization is approaching this completely differently from Barstool, and that shouldn't come as a shock to anyone, right? Remember when these two companies spent about 10 minutes trying to get in bed together, and ESPN saw the first piece of Barstool content on its air and was like, "Oh, no, we're good here," right? They are different organizations, and so Barstool really didn't set a whole lot of rules for the way they were going to go after this. But I'll tell you, Matt, we saw right from the beginning that ESPN and Disney set out rules for its personalities and said that certain personalities were not going to be able to bet on certain things. Their insiders, as we reported at Legal Sports Report, like Adrian Wojnarowski, like Jeff Passan, et cetera, these guys are not allowed to wager on the sports that they cover, which only makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe Barstool didn't have the same issue because their sphere of influence isn't the same as ESPN's, right. But it is important for perception to be clear about the fact of who can do what at any given time, which there never was any of when it came to the Barstool situation.
Yeah, I look at this and it's something I think that ESPN did that's fairly smart, like right from the get-go here, because we did see an incident a little bit ago with an insider. There's no need bringing up names and hashes, but with an insider. And the thing was, it's like, even when you're a super insider, you're going to be wrong every now and then, right? And then when you're wrong about something, then it looks like you could possibly have been trying to influence things and whatever and all that. And like, yeah, it's not very often Woj is wrong, and it's not very often Schefter's wrong, but they are still relying on information from other people, and other people could be wrong somewhere along the way. And it's just good to say, like, hey, look, this is off the table for any of these dudes. They are literally just reporting what they hear, what they are being told, what their trusted sources are telling them. and that is not going to lead to them then in turn taking said information and using it for any personal gain. And so, like, I'm glad that they were able to go ahead, get that out there, and just make sure that that's not anything we have to question moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, this is a time of incredible change when it comes to the sports betting industry. And for anyone who had the Barstool app, like, it basically, suddenly disappears, right? Like, you had the Barstool app, and all of a sudden now you have the ESPN app. And I want to take just one moment here, Matt, to acknowledge some discussion that I've seen out there in the sports betting industry space over the last 24 hours or so. And I'm not going to give the person or people at the heart of this the satisfaction of mentioning their names, because I don't think it really requires that. But there was someone out there who said that we, in our little sphere here in the Legal Sports Report area, were, quote, rooting for Barstool to fail. That is ridiculous. And that is far, far from the truth. We covered Barstool and Penn as a journalistic organization. We feel comfortable with the fact that we did the same with Barstool that we would do with any other sports book that was coming into the regulated space with the same questions, with the same challenges. Absolutely 100% equal time to all of that. Equal coverage, equal time with all of it. The idea that we would root for any sports book to fail is frankly ridiculous. And above and beyond that, for anyone who would suggest that, I would say go back and find my very, very bad year-end predictions from about 3 years ago, in which I said I thought Barstool was going to be the number 3 sports book in America. I thought they were going to be right there behind FanDuel and DraftKings. Like, I saw a path to success for Barstool, and I thought it was going to be something that stuck and resonated with a certain portion of the betting public. Didn't happen that way. We can all sit and debate the reasons for that for a long time to come. But the idea that we're rooting for someone to fail is so ludicrous that it's hard to get my head around. But I just want it, in case anybody is in the same little circles here, reading certain things and listening to our podcast, let's just get this taken care of real quick. False and ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there was, I think, with anyone that was analyzing kind of the partnership from the get-go, questioning a major deal with a gaming company with a look, calling a spade, like a controversial brand, and that is fair. That is a fair assessment. Barstool is a controversial brand. You could ask them, they would tell you that they are, right? I mean, like, they're self-described. They relish in the fact that they're a controversial brand, right? And so us having at least some questions about all of that, I think is fair. And I think that somewhere along the way that got misconstrued, as you're saying, as like rooting for someone to fail, as opposed to going, that's just an interesting choice in the grand scheme of things. But listen, all I've ever done is plotted to the golden goose of whatever, of whoever got a deal with ESPN. I think that this is a major, major win for Penn, and I think that they went about it the right way. You cut ties with a loser, you join up with a winner. And I mean, so it just is what it is, right? I mean, like, yes, we report the news, we report whatever, but I think fair criticism of a controversial, partnership is in what we do and what we're trying to bring to the people out there. I think is fair. I think it's in bounds.
I feel 100% confident that every question we raised and every issue we discussed, we were not the only ones talking about it.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.